Hi there, Matthew Harffy here. I hope you're doing well in this strange time and that you're keeping safe and healthy. And with all the time you've got to stay at home, if you're self-isolating like most of the planet seems to be, here's a little video that you might find of interest. I think this is the first video I'm doing that's been a request for the Patreon page. It was requested, I think it was by John McAfee, I think that's how you pronounce your name. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, so John's been patron at the Thane level from the very beginning. Really, I think he was the first patron at that level. So thanks to John for his support, and of course everyone else that's a patron. So it really means a lot, and it's great, really. So anyway, one of the things that I asked everybody when they join, and I said, have you got any things that you'd specifically like me to talk about in the posts? And that could be just a normal post, or it could be a video in the case of the higher tiers. So John asked for me to talk about some of the naming and how I name different characters in the Bernicia Chronicles. So I thought I'd do that, as it's something that I don't think many people have asked me about, but it is something that obviously takes a lot of effort in terms of getting names that are historically accurate, and there are a few twists in there, and I think a couple of people have noticed, or at least commented to me, that I've used some Old English definitions in the naming, and so most of the characters, or no, lots of the characters are historical. So people like Oswald and Edwin and Pender, Aidan, all of these characters, they're all names that really exist, so I can't change them. There's different spellings, and I have to choose which spelling I like the most, or which one works best, but the names are fixed. The fictional characters, like Bearbrand, are names that I invent, or names that I take from long lists of Anglo-Saxon Old English names that I used and that are around in things like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. And so often characters have got names that are actually characters, they're actual names from characters from history. But in some cases I've created the names, like Bearbrand is a fictional, is a name that I've just made up, and I've made it up from composites. I made up the name of Bearbrand years and years and years ago, back in the 90s, when I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it was a character that I had at the time, and I thought it meant battle sword, but I later discovered that I don't think it does. But anyway, the name stuck, and I've been, I used that as the main character in the books. So for some of the other characters, though, what I've done is I've used either Anglo-Saxon Old English words or composites of words that have a meaning that relates to the character's the way that their personality, or some specific trait of that character. So I just thought I'd run through some of them, just to give you an idea of the way I think, and I think that probably some of them will be a surprise to you. You won't know, and anyway, well, I just thought it'd be interesting, so let me know what you think. So the first one is, I think he appears in Warrior. No, actually, no. He appears in Storm of Steel. This character, and he's called Abracand, and Abracand comes from the Old English word breca, which means to break, and Brecand is breaking, and basically he's a character that he's horrible. He tries to rape Ardith, and he's a violent, horrible pirate. And the word breca can mean break or violate, and so I just wanted to have the name mean something, to show that his character was this violating, nasty guy. Anhager, right back in the Cross and the Curse. Anhager, if you remember, he's the crippled steward that ends up going to Ubbenford with Bearbrand, and has a bit of a crush on Sunniver, and many things happen. But Anhager actually means solitary being, a lone dweller, a recluse, because at the beginning you remember, or you might remember, that he has this really bad pronounced limp, and people in the Dark Ages, people are kind of scared of people who are different, who are somehow different, and so they see him as different, and he's kind of pushed out of society a little bit. He's on the margins of society, and quite a lonely character. So yes, I wanted to capture that in his name. In the, I think, oh yeah, this is in Warrior of Woden. You'll notice I'm going in alphabetical order, so I had a list and I sort of paired them down to the ones that I thought would be interesting, but they're not in order of the book. So the next one is Astigend, and or Astiend. Another thing is the pronunciation of the names is tough, but anyway, Astigend is the messenger, the rider that comes in Warrior of Woden. I think it's Warrior of Woden. Yes, it is. And then he ends up riding with Achenan, or Achenan, depending on how you pronounce it, into Cumbria, where they're waylaid by some warriors at a Roman fort, a hard-not Roman fort. And Astigend actually means rider. So you remember when he arrives, his horse is all lathered up, and he says that he's ridden his horse for a long time, and so yeah, he's a rider, and his name reflects that. So that's Astigend. In Storm of Steel, you've got this bartender, innkeep guy, little sort of gnome of a character, who comes along and serves the main characters a broth with snails in, and he's called Amadeo. Now that name isn't actually an Anglo-Saxon name; it's Amadeus, and Amadeo actually is a real person. It's mentioned in the historical note of the book. So if you've read the Storm of Steel and read the historical note, the author's note at the end, you'll have seen this. But Amadeo is actually a real person. He's in his 90s, and he runs a pub called or a bar called Los Caracoles in the centre of Madrid. It's an old pub, tavern, whatever you want to call it. It's been running for a long time. And Los Caracoles literally means the snails, and their delicacy is this really strong, spicy broth, which is with loads of snails in. And we used to go in there. A friend of mine, my best friend in Spain, Alex, who I shared a flat with for a long time, and we used to go in there, and this guy would Amadeo. So it was, as described in the book, he's short and white, wispy hair, and very energetic, and he would serve us up some beers and give us some of these snails in this broth, and then when we'd always say how nice it was, and then he'd insist on pouring us a glass of this hot spicy broth, and then say, "Oh, go on, have another beer and have some of this broth as well," and make us drink this broth, which was incredibly strong and salty and spicy and just nice in small doses, but not so nice to have a glass of it. But the snails were great though, and it's the first time I've eaten snails, and the best snails I've ever eaten. And so it was really just a little homage to him, really. In Killer of Kings, Alwyn is Bearbrand, one of Bearbrand's old childhood friends. When he goes back down to Heather, he meets him there, and he meets his wife as well, who's a friend who would have been a childhood friend as well, and she's called Answaru, and that literally means answer. And her character, she doesn't appear in it for very long, but she's quite wise and just she's Alwyn's quite a dreamer, and he wants to go off with Bearbrand and become a warrior, and Bearbrand knows this isn't a good idea, that the life is not for him, that Alwyn should stay home with his wife and family and tend the land, and he kind of says to him, and the wife is very matter of fact, and she provides the correct answers when he asks the questions. You know, her husband is this sort of flighty character who wants to go off with his old school friend and go, you know, become a soldier, and she's saying, no, you really don't, and you need to stay here and look after us. And I just like the idea that this name just meant answer. So she provides, you know, the answers to the questions that he asks. So Ator, the slender warrior that's in that becomes one of Bearbrand's Yesithas. His name literally means poison or venom. And he's quite a venomous character when he's fighting. He's fast, and he's deadly, and he often screams horrible abuse at people before killing them. So I just like that idea that he's very dangerous, and he's like a poison. now this is one I'm not sure how to pronounce, but Birtisen is the blacksmith in Heather, who's the father of Brynnin, who gets involved in Storm of Steel with Bearbrand is stows away on the ship. And Birtisen is a made up name of a composite. So Birt is bright, and Isen is iron. So his name literally means bright iron, and he's the blacksmith. So that's, he hasn't really got much of a character, but I like making a name that did his character justice. In the same book, Kargast is a sailor who's always looks very depressed and sad, and he's got some droopy eyes and always a bit depressed. And I think he's quite morose, and I can't remember, but I think he's got some lines where he's quite sort of down in the dumps about things. And his the Kargast literally means sad spirit. So, or it's full of anxiety, a fearful ghost. So this is that's his name. That's where his name comes from. The Walish warrior that becomes obviously Bearbrand's right-hand man in the later books. They meet him in Killer of Kings, and there's a young slave that they free, Cunan or Cunan, depending on how you pronounce it. Originally I was going to call him Conan, so the name is literally Conan, but it's another spelling of the name Conan. Conan's a Welsh name, it's a Welsh hero. I like the idea that he was going to become this powerful warrior, maybe somebody to rival even Bearbrand in stature and strength and the way and his skill as a swordsman. So I was going to call him Conan, but I bottled it at the end because I thought that people would just say, right, you're taking the piss now calling this guy Conan. So I called him Cunan instead, but it is the same name. Yeah, in Storm of Steel, you've got a character, the nasty brother of the Grimir. The brother's called Draka, the one-eyed pirate. Draka means dragon, and he's their ship, sort of dragon proud, and it's this sort of piratey type ship. And but I like the idea as well that really Storm of Steel is like it's like an Odyssey. It's episodic. He's traveling. Bearbrand is traveling. They come across different obstacles along the way. Very much like you can imagine one of these Greek stories like Homer. And I like the idea that Draka is really, it's a dragon that he needs to overcome. It's one of these obstacles, a mythical creature, if you like. I toyed with the idea of calling him something to do with Cyclops, but I just ended up with the one eye instead at the end as a nod to the Cyclops of the Odysseus. In Storm of Steel, we've also got a character called Feolagild, and Feolagild is the trader, Hrothgar's trading partner in Rodomo, in Rouen, where they go in France, in Francia. And the name is a made-up name. Again, the name is made up by me to create a name that means something to do with his character or the traits that define him. So Feolagild, Fela, the first part of it means a lot or many in Old English, and gild comes from the geld or gold, so it just means a lot of gold, basically. And he's a trader, and that's what defines his character. He's really interested in money, and the decisions that he makes in the story are really based on how much money he can make out of it. So he helps Bearbrand, but when push comes to shove, Bearbrand has to run away, and Feolagild keeps the money. And in the same book as well, in Storm of Steel, Ferenbald, the son of Hrothgar, who takes the ship, and he captains Brimblad, the ship that they will travel on to Francia. And in fact, Brimblad means what does it mean? Well, Brimblad, it means sea blade, I think. So that's the ship. But Ferenbald, the skipper, is again a made up name by me, but it comes from Bald is bold, and feren comes from to travel, to go, to depart. So it's basically the bold traveller, and he's a very bold skipper. He doesn't seem to fear anything. When there's storms, he's happy to go to sea, and he's very skilled captain of the ship. Gar, one of Bearbrand's most trusted warriors, who I think is in all the books, if I'm not mistaken, definitely from the Crossing the Curse onwards, and he is his name Gar literally means spear in Old English, and if you've read the books, you'll remember that Gar is a great spear thrower, and he's a spearman, and he's famed within the warband for being great at throwing a spear. So I literally called him Spear. And last, I think this is the last on the list that I've got here. So last is the horse. So Bearbrand's black stallion that he gets after the battle in the Crossing the Curse. The horse, he names it Shadowgenga. Shadowgenga literally means shadow goer or shadow walker, and it's because he's black. And in the Crossing the Curse, he the stallion, that is, carries Bearbrand through the dark forest where he feels there's some ominous presence in the darkness there, and Bearbrand closes his eyes and is terrified, but the horse carries it through safely, and then on to victory over Cadwallon. So there you have it. I hope that's been of interest. Leave a comment if you found that interesting. If you found it incredibly boring, tell me as well. And if you've got any other ideas of videos you'd like in the future, or other posts that you were interested in, let me know. Message me or drop a comment on the Patreon. And thank you again to everybody for your support of Patreon. And hopefully I'll carry on producing interesting content and writing interesting stories and books. And that's it. Thank you very much.